Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 57 of the Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, Emerson, and I am joined this week by my co host, Anomaly.
Hello.
And BlizzCon was this weekend. It's officially it's over now, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I believe is now as the time of this recording, it is officially over. The last panels I think end around 5 Pacific, so
Yeah.
yeah, we are in the clear.
So we got a lot of news. Uh, that's basically all we're going to be talking about today. Probably
Yep.
gonna end up even skipping Q&A. There's a lot. So
Yep. A lot of feelings, a lot of thoughts. You know, there's stuff. There's stuff.
there's
There's actually
lots
stuff to talk
of
about.
stuff. Um, but before we get into that, I know that is kind of our what happened this week
Yep.
section. Like it's the entire show. But I did want to see maybe like a little recurring segment. How is your progression going?
Oh yeah. Not terrible actually. So we are, of course, on Mythic Stone Legion. We are about like 80-ish pulls in on the boss, and we saw the final phase like 3 times on Thursday night.
Hmm,
With
you're
most
close.
most of the raid group up. I mean, I think the first time it was pretty rough, that transition, and then the second and third time cleaned it up, but quickly just died to like people not realizing like the eruptions reset in terms of like locations, and then where to run Wicked Blades. I think was the other time we wiped, which was just sort of learning positioning, first time people seeing it. So yeah, I mean, like I from what I understand, like you reach phase 3 cleanly. There's like one or two mechanics you do early on, and then it's like lust pot and kill the boss in 40 seconds. So
Yeah.
our bosses. So yeah, we're close. I mean, I had this wild idea, like that's a sub 100 pull boss for us, because I think we can put together that. But yeah, it's we're going well. I will say though that as a paladin on that fight, I absolutely hate the gargoyle things that jump and attack people,
Yeah.
particularly in the intermission phase, because you leave one of them up for so long that on its second jump, it will one shot. It'll essentially kill someone in like a second and a half, right?
Right.
And my job in that is to bop someone. So
Yep.
I literally have to watch, because it's sometimes around a blade slash crystal slash meteor. So I have to make sure I'm not in that to get stunned, or I'm moving appropriately. And then I literally have to just watch the gargoyle, whoever it jumps to, like bop them almost immediately so they don't die. And it's like super stressful, because like I'm like ultra focused on that and like not paying attention to anything else. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, I mean, it's going well. I mean, we've been extending, so hopefully a Tuesday kill, and then it's starting on Sire. So, um,
Nice.
yeah. So how's you guys still working on Sledgefest?
No, we killed Sludgefist.
Oh, nice, 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 nice.
Actually, like 30 minutes into raid the very next day after last week's episode.
Oh, nice, nice. You got like
So
almost a full night on, yeah, full night
yeah,
or two actually.
so we started on Stone Legion, and it's going pretty well so far. Yesterday was our second night. We're getting into phase 2. I don't remember our pull count, but phase 1 wipes are we're not wiping in phase 1. We're wiping an intermission one.
Yeah,
To, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced the oops, one of the shields didn't get broken, or you
yep.
know, someone didn't get the crystallize out at the right time. Just nobody got in it. Stuff like that. And then the random people getting knocked off the edge because they stood too close to the dunk point while running out wicked blades. That's the big one, actually. We've mostly solved the shields issue. That one got us a couple times.
Gotcha.
Uh, which we had a fun one. So our like a hunter and warrior ran out the wicked blade, okay?
Hmm.
And dunks are happening at the same time. Warrior gets just yeeted by the dunk.
Yeah.
Uh the wicked blade goes from the boss to the hunter towards the warrior, then follows the warrior, goes through me, on the boss gives me a stack. Then the warrior dies from falling damage,
Hmm.
and it puts your body in the center of the room. So the blade keeps going back
Oh
up
no.
through the entire raid, immediately
Oh no.
wiping us, and then for extra spice, it comes back and it hits me again
Oh my god.
before
That's crazy.
before we wipe. So
That's
don't get knocked off during wicked. It's bad time.
that's funny. Yeah, we didn't have any knockoff issues in terms of like the Wicked Blade positioning, but what we ran into was people picking up multiple orbs and then doing it all at once. So like a lot of times our raid would like not move away as they were dying. So like
Yeah,
we'd pick up literally the first group all at once and then we'd miss some with the turnips
yeah,
because people wouldn't be fast enough to get it in. So um yeah, we've mostly fixed that. We still the last one we dunk, we have a hunter assigned to it, and there's a rare occasion a different person will run into that and then they will inevitably forget what to do and wipe us, right?
yeah.
Or screw it
We've
up. But
actually every single time we've gotten through the shields without dying.
mhm.
Um, or I guess I shouldn't say that. We had a string of like 5 pulls that we got into phase 2 cleanly in a row. That was really
Mhm.
nice. Phase 2 seems simpler in some sense. Like there's all the phase 1 stuff, but then the phase 2 stuff doesn't actually seem that much more complicated. Uh,
No.
so
Yeah,
I have
I
high
mean,
hopes.
phase two is actually almost well, as long as people can move their feet for upheaval, right? Like
Right.
as long as they can move and do the whole dance recital thing from council, it's actually I think a lot easier. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, awesome. No, you're not too far behind, which is awesome. Um, oh yeah, but hopefully we get that kill on Thursday or sorry Tuesday, and then we get to start Sire. So, um, yeah, it gets fun. The second transition is not fun, by the way. You have
I have
no
seen.
room you have no room to like move, so like everything is like right in that sort of just front pocket, like where
Yeah.
you just barely can't get knocked back, and then the wicked blades go all the way to the back. And the first, yeah, that was second transition was interesting. The first couple times we went through it, so um, but cool. We think we're good to start the what happened next week section, which is essentially
Yeah.
the entire
Yep.
episode.
So why don't we kick it off with just a little bit about some of the non-WoW stuff, and by non-WoW
Okay.
stuff, I basically just mean Diablo, because
Yeah.
let's be real, that's most of the non-WoW stuff from the this year's BlizzCon.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a quick recap, just at a high level, like Hearthstone was a new expansion, was the big one. And then Overwatch 2, they did give a deep dive. I mean, other than some major design points that they talked about, which was like just quick hits, like they had like spec specific buffs, right? Where like tanks gain the ability to get knocked back less by knockbacks, DPS gain a small move speed, and healers gain a small like auto regeneration after they haven't taken damage. So they have role based perks now. And then they're sort of shifting some of the things like tanks are no longer going to be like tanks, they'll be more brawlers. So they get a little bit more damage and then your face a little bit more. And they talked a lot about like a horde mode or more of the PvE type content that they're bringing in where you can co op PvE and not always competitive. So I mean, other than that, a couple overviews of new maps, but I mean, ultimately, nothing too crazy in
Yeah.
terms of like new Overwatch 2 stuff. So, and yeah, Hearthstone. I'm assuming it's just the expansion. I didn't actually watch
There's an
anything for them.
expansion.
So,
There's some other things that, as someone that's played a lot of Magic, I really wish Wizards of the Coast would do, but
okay,
this is not I don't really want to dive into it, because that
okay, fair,
explaining the context around it and why I wish they would do it.
cool,
There
cool,
is
cool.
some other stuff that they announced that's it's not just a new expansion, but it's mostly a new expansion.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Cool. So yeah, so Diablo. Which of the three Diablo things do you want to talk about first?
Oh, let's go with Diablo 4. Um,
Okay.
so they announced what mounts, like you're gonna
Hmm.
have a big open world, so you're gonna have a mount to get around with. Not a lot of the like, not as much of the like teleporting and loading screens as maybe there were in Diablo 3.
Yeah,
Um,
It seemed like much more the idea was much more of like a seamless world where you literally can ride from sanctuary to zone to zone and never sort of hit those loading screens or those like end
Yeah,
of zone
kind of like WoW
worlds.
is. You know, you can go
Yeah, yeah.
from Winter Spring all the way down to Tanaris and not hit a single loading screen.
Exactly, exactly. So I mean, it was I think that was the big point they made in terms of just like the world building. The cool thing is like every character or class, I guess, gets a like off the mount ability or move. So they debuted like last time I guess it's the mage one, right? Where she like freezes enemies as she jumps off her mount and sort of gets into the fray. Um, but then this time they unveiled a new class, the rogue, and they're jumping off horse animation, essentially like rain of arrows, which looked really cool. I
Yeah,
think.
no, this game looks amazing. Like visually is amazing. One of the things that stood out to me as well from like obviously no gameplay demo, but from the gameplay footage that they showed is just how quick like the rogue looked. And that's always been one of my complaints about PoE, that like
Hmm.
maybe it's different at the end game, like if you get really end game, um but it's always felt slow and clunky. I cannot talk.
Yeah.
um Compared to Diablo 3. So despite D3's flaws, you know, that's always been one that I've enjoyed playing more.
Yeah.
And this seems like more of that. It looks like the rogue looks really fast and quick, dashing around the battlefield, just deleting things. So yeah, that looks like fun. I'm looking forward to when we get like a Diablo 4 beta, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the art direction initially a lot of people were like it's just another D3, right? But this is particularly in like the lighter areas, right? Like the areas that had just more just ambient lighters were better lit. The game looks a lot more realistic. I guess would be like the term I would use in terms of like the art style, like the background. Some of those like indoor areas seem to just have a lot more like detail inside of them and things like that
Yeah,
than D3 did. And and yeah, I mean, I think the art style looks great. Like some of the abilities looked really good. The rogue looked interesting. I don't think I'll ever play it. I don't generally play like melee in ARPGs, but yeah, I mean the intro looked cool. And then I think the other big thing for me was like the ears are back, which um
all right. Can you, as someone that didn't play Diablo 2, like when it was current, when there were other people, like I didn't play online basically.
yeah.
What are ears?
So basically, like you could join certain like servers or whatever, or just other people, right? In PvP in Diablo 2. And believe it was also in Diablo 1. And the idea was like whenever you killed someone, when you looted their body, as a part of that, you got an ear. And the ear essentially had their name on it. And the item, if I remember correctly, the item didn't do anything, right? It just was like a token of like you killed that person and took their ear. So the idea of them bringing back is interesting. I wonder if they put a currency around it. I mean, I did not PvP much in terms of like what I did. I mean, a lot of it was maybe like a couple of times. But I know I had some friends in high school that really enjoyed PvPing and like would talk about like they got the ear of somebody who was like, I don't know, somebody good. I guess there was like
Right.
local, like people were good. So yeah, that's really all they were was just like tokens. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually make them do anything beyond just like, hey, you killed him. Here's a name token, which I think would be cool if they
Yeah.
left it like that. Like there was nothing about it, but yeah, they did talk a little bit about in Diablo 4 some of like the PvP zone stuff too, which sort of ties into this, which is like it seemed almost like a it reminded me as they're explaining it of the Division, which I don't know if you ever played
I
the
didn't.
Division. So like the idea of the Division was like you're in a post-apocalyptic, quickly high level post-apocalyptic like New York City, and like there are like safe zones and contaminated zones. And when you go to the contaminated zone, anything can kill you, including other players. And if you get really good loot there, you have to like decontaminate it before you can take it out of the contamination zone. And if you die there, you drop everything. So like the idea is like you basically like quickly get in, kill what you need to kill, get the good loot, and then like basically call in a helicopter. You have to wait like 60 seconds for that to come in, at which point everybody around you knows it's happening, and then everyone will try and kill you and then take your loot unless you get on the helicopter. So anyway, It's exactly what this sounds like in terms of like you run around this PvP area killing monsters for like one currency, but then if you want to like turn it into like the more powerful currency, you have to like go to an altar, trigger the altar, and then sit around that altar for like 60 seconds while you're I don't know while you cook it or whatever you do,
Yeah.
right? And then it pops out and you get like biscuits that you can then use to buy like better stuff. So that's what it reminded me of. I will never do this. Unless I like can find some place where I'm all alone by myself. The
Mhm.
division and Division 2 gave me like heart attack in terms of like the stress it induced. So like I have zero desire to play a PvP game like that. But it seemed cool if you're into that sort of like loot driven, you can drop loot, things like that. So but yeah, D4 looked I mean, I think in general it looked good. Like it looked much better than what we saw last BlizzCon, right? Which I
Yeah.
guess would be expected. It's further
Which is
along.
good.
So
A year on, we want it to look better.
yeah.
Um, so yeah. Speaking of betas, though, we are also getting Diablo 2 Resurrected. This is something we talked about when Vicarious Visions got acquired by ActiBliz.
Yep.
Um, that they might be working on this. I don't think we have confirmation that they are yet.
Oh no, we do.
We do?
So the lead designer in the deep dive panel is somebody from Vicarious Visions.
Oh,
So one
okay.
of the
All
one of the
right.
guys
We do have
talking is from
confirmation. They
yeah
didn't say anything, but they may as well have.
yeah
Um,
yeah
so that it's basically it's Diablo 2. Instead of sprites, they've basically made 3D renders of the like not of the sprites, but they're that invoke the feel of the sprite.
yeah.
Like
The
they
deep dive is actually really cool, by the way.
yeah, I'm gonna go watch it later. I haven't gotten to watch it yet. But from what I saw at the intro to BlizzCon thing yesterday,
Hmm.
it looked. And you can go and opt in to the technical alpha right now on the Diablo site. So if
Hmm.
you're interested in playing that, go and opt in.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Um, and we also got the announcement, I guess, that Diablo is coming out soon-ish, and I seem to remember them saying we would be getting either a beta or an alpha for that as well, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I watched, like I said, I think the D4 and the Diablo 2 Resurrected stuff. I haven't seen anything on Immortal, so that is on my to-do list probably either tonight or tomorrow, just to catch up a little bit.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean that yeah, I guess I would assume it's coming out soon. But the one thing I did want to talk about just real quick on Diablo 2 Resurrected is they there's one part they talk about where they were remodeling the inn, and like in the kitchen part of the inn there was like one of the lead devs mentioned or noticed when they were doing like just a quick flyby was like, oh, there's like onions hanging on like over the cooktop or whatever. And I was like, oh, did you guys add that? Speaking with like the I think it was the Vicarious Visions team or whatever. Um, and they're like, no, like those were in the original game. And the dev was like, no, no, they weren't. Like we wouldn't put their onions. And like they go back and they do a side by side comparison, and it's like new version onions, old version is like a 5 pixel sprite of like white balls that like were the onions that like hang over the thing. It was so cool, like the attention. I mean, as long as they like continue it, but the attention to detail of actually getting it like, look, this stuff was in the original game. We've just sort of like built it in 3D now, right?
yeah,
Seems really cool. The other thing too, which if you get a chance to watch the technical, like the deep dive on this one, if you played Diablo 2, like with any sort of like you played it a lot or like really got into it, they're keeping a lot of the same systems in place, even though the game is going to end up running at 60 FPS. All the timings are still at that 25% or 25 FPS timing, right? So you still like are either in motion or not in motion in terms of like your character. It's still all grid based underneath, right? So like your movement's very similar. They just basically have like smoothed out a lot of the animations and just updated that way. So a lot of the underlying systems still work the exact same way. The graphics just are updated, and they do the cool remaster thing of like being able to toggle between the two,
yeah,
like on the fly. So like you can hit a button and you're in old Diablo 2 graphics, and another button you're in like the resurrected graphics. So sorry, I'm like actually really excited about D2
yeah.
in
Uh,
terms of like what it is.
my
So
understanding is we're getting D2 resurrected before we get D4. Or at the very
yeah,
least, it's going to be playable in our hands because we have a technical alpha at some point in the I don't want to say near future, but relatively near future for
Yep.
Diablo 2 Resurrected, and Diablo 4 is not quite at that point yet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, and Immortal, I mean, like I said, I haven't watched anything on Immortal, but everything I've heard coming out of the technical alpha that was like pre the holidays or right around that, everyone's had good things to say. So, I mean, a lot of people sort of meme on that thing, but I think it actually is going to end up being kind of cool. Some of the
Yeah,
stuff I even read and from an interview perspective seems interesting where like you have spells that build upon other spells. So like there's a synergy between like I don't know if it was like Frost Nova and then like an Ice Spike ability. So like which is not something that Diablo has like traditionally done, right?
right.
So it'll be hopefully interesting. We'll see. Cool. Anything else on the non-WoW stuff?
Oh, I guess they also very heavily implied that there are going to be new IPs from Blizzard in the next, I would say in the next year, we're going to get some kind of announcements, whether that's next year's BlizzCon
Hmm.
or another announcement then. But he basically said we had things we wanted to have here, like other IPs we wanted to have here, and they're just not ready.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
basically what he.
yeah. Yeah, so that'd be interesting. We did get too, I don't know, we sort of a hot topic, but we did get that arcade classics drop with Lost Vikings,
Yes.
Rock and Roll Racing, and Blackthorn. So I played. I actually played Rock and Roll Racing last night for like an hour. It was so much fun. Uh, but yeah, that is also out. If you, I think if you bought uh, like the additional stuff with like the mounts or whatever, like
Yeah.
whatever replaced like the virtual ticket, right? You got a copy of that in your BattleNet launcher. So,
Yeah.
but that was cool. So
Yeah. I'm for WoW stuff. And
yeah,
oh boy. Um
so
yeah.
excited.
So we didn't have the leak last week, did we? Right? We were just speculating.
We were, yeah. I think there was some under rumblings, right, of
Yeah.
this one, which was like Burning
Burning
Crusade
Crusade
Classic
Classic. Yeah.
might come out.
It's confirmed.
And they
It's
announced it.
confirmed it's gonna be sooner rather than later. We don't have an exact date. Um and if I had to guess, I would say after 9.05, probably after 9.1, but like so something like fall,
Yeah,
like early fall, like August timeframe. But that's complete speculation based on the stuff that they said. But oh boy,
I'm so excited.
yeah. Burning Crusade is like pre Legion was the time. I guess like Burning Crusade is basically where I started playing WoW, right? Like I spent a lot of time playing WoW during the Burning Crusade. It's got, I think, the leveling experience in BC, like the whole way through, even not even just the BC zone, but that is where WoW really hit its stride in terms of like
Oh yeah,
balancing the grindiness of it with the actual like anything can kill you kind of vibe that classic anything can kill you, but also it takes for
yeah,
it goes a little bit faster in PC. So they did confirm we are going with the XP curve and the balancing as of patch 2.4.3. Um,
yeah.
very much like classic in that regard, where they started at 1.12.1. So uh, that's
Be great.
that's
Be
great.
great.
Uh,
That XP tuning and balance tuning, like so a very visceral thing I remember is I was leveling a paladin around this time. And I was in uh Terracar, not Terracar. What was the mountainous zone?
Blade's Edge.
Blades Edge. I was in Blades Edge to the north right before you head over to Netherstorm. And I was killing these like harpies or whatever. And it was literally like put up a seal, auto attack for 30 seconds, judge the seal, do that twice and kill one mob. And I was leveling to do that. And I remember this patch hit, log into my paladin, and I literally am pulling 5 or 6 things and just demolishing everything. It was the greatest experience ever when that came in terms of like just the patch, like the balancing and things like that. So, yeah, it's cool that they're going with the final patch balancing, which I think in terms of like giving a an authentic experience makes sense. I mean, there's no point in like basically remaking the same mistakes or remaking the same sort of issues they had, right?
Right.
Which is cool. The one thing they aren't doing, which is interesting, is they're not putting in the post nerf bosses,
Right. I was going to mention
which
that, which is something that really I think like kind of hurt Classic, where
yeah,
if a boss was nerfed by the time 1.1 rolled around, well, it was nerfed when Classic launched. So I don't even know what nerfs there were. But if AQ got nerfed or if um, Molten Core got nerfed, they were just easier when everybody set foot in the zone. Um,
right.
I do think like keeping the class balance changes in is good because we generally, as a general rule, we don't see a lot of like Diablo 3 style power creeping of the base class itself, where like Diablo
Yeah,
3, they the numbers on buttons now are a whole lot bigger than
yeah,
they were when the game launched. That's not really what we see in WoW, at least within the singular expansion. The power creep comes from other gear and other systems. And since we're starting fresh with, we'll get, the initial gear that was available at the beginning of expansion, it's going to be uh, pretty nice.
yeah,
They also said that this is they are more or less rejecting the hashtag no changes crowd.
yeah.
They uh, they are hashtag some changes is the way they described it. So we are getting some things like paladins in Burning Crusade, if you don't remember, had a seal that was unique to your faction. Horde paladins, aka Blood Elves, had Seal of Blood, and Alliance paladins had Seal of Vengeance.
It doesn't matter. It sucked. Like,
Seal of Blood
like still,
was a lot
it was
better,
just
like a
better. It was just
lot better. So both factions are gonna have both seals now, and Seal of Vengeance will continue to not get used.
yeah. Which the way they're doing it is cool too. So you still level like if you level a Blood Elf Paladin or
Right.
in a Draenei Paladin, right, or Alliance Paladin, sorry, you don't get Seal of Blood is at what was it 54 when those came out. You still
Right.
get the faction specific one, but then once you hit 60, you get both, right? So
Yeah.
like at 60, Alliance Paladins will get Blood, Seal of Blood, and Horde Paladins will get Seal of Vengeance. So
Right.
that's an interesting change. I mean, the other they're making a couple other like interesting sort of changes too around like leatherworking and drums, which
Yeah.
if you didn't play in this era, like drums used to stack with heroism, and it was on a cooldown that you could essentially rotate and it was only on your group, but you could have four leatherworkers in your group and keep up a permanent drums buff. So the way cooldowns work and things like that. It did require you to level leatherworking to like 100 or 120 or something like that just to use them.
But it
Um,
wasn't that bad to do that.
no, no. So I it's the I can tell you it's honestly the only time my warlock ever had an profession other than enchanting or tailoring was essentially late black or essentially started Black Temple through Sunwell,
Yeah.
for drums, right? And that was actually I think we talked about that. That was my job was to like rotate people through groups because you could do in comp. I wonder if they'll keep that actually. That would be
Oh,
interesting because you could
that's
change groups in combat.
yeah. I imagine they
That,
will. It's just some of the really dumb stuff like drums is gonna get
yeah,
changed. They also said like they're removing spell batching. That's something that they went back and
yeah.
implemented again for Classic, and then realized how many issues it actually caused. And they were like, we appreciate that
No.
some people really like that feel and some of the quirks that come from that, but also this actually is causing problems, and we're just gonna not have it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and then uh, another change they're making: Blood Elves and Draenei will be available for leveling prior to the actual release of the zones. So you'll be able to level to 60 with a Blood Elf or a Draenei before the zones actually opened, which is different from how it was when the expansion actually released. All of the zones opened at the exact same time when that
Yeah.
happened, which is different. Like they've changed that. This is how they do modern, you know. if
Yeah,
an
it'll be like a
expansion,
sorry.
yeah, if an expansion releases with like a new class during the pre-patch, you get to level that class. Which is why at the end of WoD, 3/4 of everyone was a demon hunter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean it's cool. There are also a couple of quick things just that they're gonna do 5 content patches, they said. Essentially, they laid them out. It's funny, they're actually changing them
Yeah,
as we speak. So like even in from like yesterday from their presentation to today during the Q&As, they changed like where season 1 of the PvP season starts, right? They end up starting it earlier, which means there's one less. I think in the Zulaman patch, there's no longer a PvP season being dropped a new one. So I think it's still a lot of in flux, but they do have a plan of at least how they want to release things, which will be interesting in terms of like how they handle attunements. Because like is it Hyjal and Black Temple are together, and you needed to do Hyjal to attune to Black Temple.
yeah. I
So
did they say anything about changing the attunements, or is
no.
okay?
I
So
hope
they're
they don't.
probably
I
keeping the attunements and just staging out the releases so people aren't like trying to do all the attunements at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the Hyjal one only required you to kill the first boss in Hyjal to get into
Okay,
Black Temple. Like Rage Chill was the name. So I mean, it's not a huge lift. Like that's what my guild ended up doing. Literally, like we went in, killed one boss in Hyjal, zoned out, and went and did Black Temple. Once we got all the attunements ready. But I hope they keep them in there. Like the attunement process in BC is honestly probably one of the more memorable parts of the that expansion
it's
when I played
memorable
live.
because you needed a fucking map.
Yeah, I mean, like you need the map. It was such a long thing. It was the idea of doing like like Legion artifact progression, right? Or progression once you hit max. Like this was progression once you hit max in a way that honestly, I mean, it's kind of harsh, I think, in today's games, right? Where
Yeah,
you have people jumping in and out, and there's so much stuff people can do. But back then, when you like essentially dedicated yourself to one game, like it made sense that like you had to walk yourself through this attunement process, which was I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm fine if they keep it. I mean, they could do the thing they did. They eventually got rid of them, right?
yeah. I don't
In
think
one
they
of
did
some of the
until
later
the
patches.
Wrath pre-patch, or maybe it was 2 point. I think it was the Wrath pre-patch though. Got rid of them.
Yeah, to be fair, I thought I remember them earlier, but I mean,
I don't remember.
in any event, yeah,
I
I don't
I think
remember.
they like nerfed the attunement requirements
Yeah, they could have
during
done that.
BC, but there were still attunement requirements. I know there were attunement requirements like to do heroic dungeons.
Yep.
Um, you had to get
Yeah.
the rep, go and buy a key from a vendor. And when BC launched, you didn't have a keychain. They just took
Yep.
up a slot in your bags. If you
That
went
was
to the
great.
instance and your key was in the bank, you couldn't go in.
Screwed. Yeah. No, that was. Oh God, those were fun times, man. Yeah. So BC, I mean, I think content wise, it make like the way they're splitting it out makes a lot of sense. But it'll be fun to get back in there. Yeah, I hope they don't get rid of attunements because those things were
Yeah,
doing like Mechanar. Oh my god, like ferrying. Like we used to ferry guildmates through that thing. Like
yeah,
it was fun. I guess the only other thing we didn't talk about was like what happens in the transition side. So like what happens to all the current classic realms
yeah,
once BC launches. So just for quick notes, right? The way it works is like essentially every server that's currently active from a classic perspective will become a BC server when they launch, and you have the option per character to either move that character forward in BC, right, to BC, leave it behind in essentially a like copied state on a realm that will never leave classic, or you can essentially clone it for a fee. So you can basically take the character, create a clone in BC, leave one
yeah.
in Classic, and be able to play both. But that cloning costs money,
They
which
haven't announced the price yet. Hopefully, it's
no,
not stupid expensive like their character transfer fee.
yeah, I mean, like you'd expect it to be like $15 or something like that. I mean, as a baseline.
Yeah. Hina in chat is saying I still have some of the keys
Yeah,
from
yeah,
from dungeons. I I didn't start playing retail WoW until after they had already gotten rid of keys, so I don't have any.
yeah.
Uh,
You didn't live that experience, so
I
I
did,
should check to see if my original Warlock has any.
yeah. So
Because that's what it had them. So, but yeah, so that's sort of the era based expansion, and then they'll have sort of classic only servers, and then like I guess progression servers. I forget the name they're using it, but servers that will
basically
always be on the
progressions.
current
Yeah,
patch, right? And then finally, which I am actually very excited for, they have paid boost to level 58.
you get so there's
Well, one.
restrictions.
You get one.
One per account. And it's not clear whether this is per. I assume this is per WoW license, not per BattleNet account,
Yeah.
but per account. So you get one that you can use if you want to skip the leveling process. Some of us are busy people and don't have time for that anymore. I am
Yeah.
going to try and finish leveling my classic druid um, before BC hits. That's like I have that goal for myself. It's level 30, 30 more to go. Stuck at that really awkward level 30 spot where I'm too high level for a lot of like Ashen Veil and not high enough level to actually go to the next zones.
Yeah. Like that,
So
like the Desolace sort of like you're not 32 yet, so you're still a little too level for those intro quests. And yeah,
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 that's tough. Yeah, I will probably. I mean, I'll have to see what I have on. I forget what I leveled on Classic. I also probably made it in like the 20s, low 30s. But I really want to play a Shaman. So if I didn't level a Shaman that high, then I'm not playing Classic. I'll just buy the boost. So
yeah. I
um,
mean, I have great memory. I'm going to when BC Classic lands. Honestly, I'm not sure if I would continue leveling the druid or if I would go and make a Blood Elf Rogue, which like super cliche, but that was my first character that I actually played beyond like the starting zone, Blood Elf
oh,
Rogue.
cool.
So I didn't actually get a rogue to cap until Legion, but
Really?
I got all the way. I got so my first rogue I took all the way from the Blood Elf starting area down. I hit like level 55 or something like that, just a little bit shy of where you go and start burning Crusade. So I was down
Hmm.
in like Tanaris and doing you know. So I'm definitely doing that. It's just a question of whether I do that first or I go and level my druid first. That's my druid is the one that actually hits.
Gotcha. Yeah, I only ever to this day, like going through BC, I had only ever leveled a warlock myself. I might have had other characters that were 60, but those were leveled in not the most we'll say like legal ways, right?
Uh huh. Uh huh. Uh
We'll say
huh.
they might have just ended up gliding their way to 60 somehow. I don't know if you remember that.
Uh
So
huh. Uh
yeah.
huh.
But yeah, my warlock would have been what I ended up leveling and sort of played the most. So and then that paladin I talked about was actually the second character I leveled myself to 70. So I will though, I mean shaman in that era was just so strong that, it'd be fun to play a class that hit one button again and healed everyone for a million. So that's what we'll try. But
You
yeah, I mean,
could alternately, if you're really invested in the one button thing. I know there's you've got hunters, you got warlocks.
I do.
Uh, I don't
Was
remember what else. I think mages were almost had
Gotcha.
like
Was Paladins the 6/9 rotation at that point for
I don't
tanking?
I don't know.
Yeah, because I know they did that in Wrath. I had literally when I tanked in Wrath on a Paladin, I had two macros that just hit all my 6-second cooldowns in order, and then my 9-second cooldowns in order. I just hit one and then the other, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that was a wrath thing.
yeah,
'Cause I remember those macros.
yeah. That was the time to be alive when rotations just sort of fell into place. So, but cool. Anything else on BC? I think we
I
covered
am
most
I
of
am
it.
super like this is I think out of everything from BlizzCon the thing I am most excited about.
Yeah, I mean, same. Like this was, like personally, this was the time of the game where I started to care more about rating and sort of care about more about playing the game than in MC, like or in sorry, classic. Like I was in a rating guild at the time. Like we still rated. It was fun, but like this like when this expansion came out, I realized like I really do enjoy all the boss fights. The boss fights became like more exciting. Like you had Magtheridon where you had to click cubes, which is so much different than everything that had happened before, right?
Yeah,
Gruul and his like stomp that had so much individual personal responsibility about spreading um
yeah.
and then like
I
you
mean,
fought some iconic characters, right? Like you
yeah.
killed Kale, Illidan, and killed Jaden like in
And
an
Lady Vosh,
expansion.
getting Lady
Oh,
Vosh.
and Vash, sorry, yeah, and Vash. God, yeah.
Yeah,
Like every end boss was like a major lore character from War 3, which I
yeah.
played which I don't know much about the lore today in typical WoW, but like when I played War 3 a ton, so I knew all these characters. So yeah, it was it'll be fun to go. It's funny. I talked to one of my buddies who he had never played BC, so we played Classic together. He quit and he came back for like Legion or whatever finally, and he never played BC. So I was like, dude, if we want to get into this, I will quit retail and play BC with you, but like you need to commit. And I was like explaining like the attunements to him because I was like, if we're doing this, like this is not a like, hey, we'll have fun on the side. It's like we quit everything else and we just play this game. So, but yeah, no, I'm super stoked. I'm super stoked.
So what you're saying is I might need a new co-host when this comes out.
I mean, I'll maybe like I'll still be around. Like how about this?
Well,
I'll
there's
do the
no
podcast
druids
as
in
long
the
as I
Burning
can raid.
Crusade.
Like
Or
if
sorry,
I
no
can,
monks in the Burning Crusade.
yeah, if I can raid while we do the podcast, like on the side, maybe that'll be cool. Maybe that'll be cool. So no,
You're gonna day raid in BC.
I mean, maybe we'll see. I might have to get a divorce for that one. We might stick to the nights, but yeah, we'll see.
um, okay, one more thing before we move on. How long do you think the BC raids are going to last? Classic raids infamously have been cleared in like 2 hours every single one.
Yeah. Um, I think it'll be quick. Like, I don't think they last much longer. Like, here's the thing: is like I know that going into Classic, the Classic private server community was very large, right?
Yeah.
And you had a lot of people that were
The
sort of
Burning
ingrained in that.
Crusade private server community, a lot smaller, a lot fewer Blizz like options.
Exactly. So I'm assuming they'll last longer. However, I don't think it's going to be like Gruul comes out and it's like a 4-day event. It's like maybe like a day or two he
Yeah.
lives, and then like whatever guild is sort of pushing progression wise that way, it will kill it. So, yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that even pre nerf, all the strats are known. So that's the biggest thing is like figuring it out. I think is what takes so long, and like you don't have to figure out any of this.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? So yeah, so I think they'll last longer, particularly because they're keeping them in their pre-nerf states. But I mean, it'll be a
Yeah.
couple hours longer, not like weeks longer or days longer. So
Yeah. And it's gonna these bosses are almost all a step above classic bosses in terms of like complexity. Um,
yeah,
so I wouldn't I would expect that like the world first rekills of them are gonna be, you know, I would expect 2 days, like
yeah,
and it really depends on the tier. Like Gruul, probably less than a day. Uh, Something like Vaj, uh, maybe more like the 2 day time frame, just because there's more bosses in there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and Gruul was no pushover in his like opening form, right? Like
Yeah,
his just that'll be like a gear thing. That'll just be like we literally don't have the hit points or the throughput to like do this type of thing. And that's the other problem. Not a problem, but like gear progression wasn't what it was, right? Like we didn't
yeah.
get
In classic gear progression was a lot different.
yeah. Yeah. So it'll be cool. I definitely think it'll last a little bit longer, but I mean it's not like they're figuring out how to kill these bosses like we already
Yeah.
did it 14, 15 years ago. So yeah.
Yep. Oh man, I'm excited about that though. But we have yet more WoW news because retail is getting patch 9.1. And we got a fancy schmancy new cinematic for that you should go and watch because we're going to be talking about it and spoilers, I guess. This is your spoiler warning.
Yeah.
Um,
Basically spoilers, yeah, for the rest of this.
yeah. Uh, so you want to start with the cinematic?
Yeah, yeah, because I think that's what they essentially opened with the opening cinematic for the patch, and it's it's interesting. So to lay the land, you essentially have they do a quick recap of what happened at the end of the last cinematic, which was essentially they had created this new Mornblade using what was it, Silamon as a I think that's how you pronounce it, but like Anduin's sword,
Yeah.
which was his father Varian's sword, right? They used his sword as sort of a base, turned it into a Mornblade, and essentially it's Sylvanas basically saying like like or it's Anduin telling Sylvanas to make a choice, like either you kill me or you make me submit. I'm not going to make that choice for you. It's your choice. So it sort of flashes back to that, and then it flashes forward to Anduin sort of like walking through Bastion, like the whatever the
Yeah.
Bastion Hall place is, um, to uh to see
The
the Archon.
Archon. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's like walking up. There's a nice little moment where like Uther passes by him and like Uther like stops and like grabs where he was stabbed by Frostmourne by that Mournblade, right?
Yeah.
As Anduin passes, a sort of a foreshadowing, which you if you didn't get this already, you hopefully pick this up, is foreshadowing what's about to happen.
Right.
And
So
essentially,
on
oh sorry.
while we're talking about Uther, did you notice it seemed like he was being guarded?
Yeah, and I'm wondering I don't know if it was so much guarded as like he was helping them do well, the problem was is that the person in front of him and behind him had things in their hands, if I remember correctly, right?
Oh, I
They're
don't
carrying
know.
like boxes. And like he didn't have anything, but he wasn't like chained up, it didn't look like.
Yeah.
So it seemed like more like he was just like either in the way or like he was like they were like showing him around, like, hey, do this or whatever. But yeah, it seemed like he like stopped short and then the guy behind him sort of like bumped him and was like, hey, like keep going. But I don't he didn't look like a prisoner, but to be fair, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't yeah, that's an interesting one. We can go back and check. But yeah, of course, like he like of course realizes there's a Mournblade somewhere near because his like little Mournblade detector, aka the big hole in his chest, starts going off. Um and so Anduin, walks up to meet with the Archon, and then literally the Archon starts talking, and then Anduin, I don't know if Anduin says anything or
He
just like
does.
looks up,
Yeah.
and then like the jailer's voice starts coming out of Anduin, and then of course like the Archon's like, oh my gosh, she's here, and then like he goes Super Saiyan, like basically slams the ground, like ties up everyone with chains or whatever, and then basically does the whole like leaping at the Archon. And as he's leaping out of this smoke cloud that he just created, his armor shifts from like the golden lion to like the armor of the damned with like skulls and runes everywhere. And then he stabs the Archon with the new Morn blade, and like sucks out like the symbol of the Kyrian, which is a key that I guess the jailer needs. Um, and then leaves, and then goes back to the jailer and turns over this key to the jailer. And then the jailer is like, we only need three more. We need all the keys to do something. And the shot sort of pans up, or pans, sorry, down and up, basically shooting up behind the jailer. And there's like this big landmass set on two chains. It looks like he's like pulling
Spoiler,
it.
new zone.
Yeah. So that's the way the cinematic ends. It's actually like corny as it sounds, is actually pretty cool. I mean, like you knew it was bad. Like the Uther thing, if you didn't realize like Anduin just casually walking through Bastion was not a good thing, like the Uther thing should have set you off that something was about to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, then like he just went crazy, like not crazy, but like you know, did his
And
whole movie things.
he had a flash of clarity right after stabbing
Yeah,
the Archon, which they confirmed in the Q&A. Archon not dead, just very stabbed. Um,
lost her key, whatever that means.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, anytime I lose my keys, I'm having a real bad day. So you
It's
know,
true. It's true.
um, but he has like a flash of clarity, realizes what he's done, and then the jailer takes.
Yeah. Yeah, so it seems like a mind control that's not like permanent or like full overarching. Like there's some part of Anduin experiencing this as he's doing it, but maybe not being able to control himself,
Yeah,
right? I hate it. Like that is just mind control is just like to me it's just like a lazy thing, particularly in the context of this where like you realize what it is like before it happens, right? Like you realize that this is not actually Anduin doing what he's doing.
right.
So even like I don't know,
No,
even as he's walking out, like you realize like, hey, this is not the real Anduin.
yeah. So even though, so I agree in general. However, they aren't doing the thing where like everybody thinks it's still Anduin. Like everybody knows this is not Anduin.
That's true. That's true.
So they're not playing into that trope, which is good because that trope sucks, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm gonna call this now. Um, the reason that he's not under the full control of the jailer is that Sylvanas is setting something up. She made her choice, and her choice is to try and play the jailer,
No.
and that's
Didn't
why
agree.
Anduin is not under full control.
That's fine if that's the case. I'm still killing her.
I mean, yeah. Also confirmed boss in the next tier. Um, but yeah, that is I am shooting my shot. I am making that call right now. Uh, we're gonna see Sylvanas betray the jailer and try and use Anduin as part of that.
For her, okay, for her own gain or to take down the jailer.
Yes.
So, okay, okay. Because like if it's to take down the jailer, I am less happy about that
Yeah.
because then they do the whole like I knew he was coming and all everything I did was so that I could do stuff to take him down. Like that's dumb.
Yeah.
But if it's literally to be like I want to become more powerful over death and I got to kill the jailer to do that, I'm fine with that. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. So,
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting take. I the problem is like if she does that, she's literally got like half a patch to get that done, right?
Well,
Because like
you're
we
assuming she dies at the end of the raid. Queen Azura, we killed Queen Azura. She didn't die.
oh God, I can't. Okay,
Still
we're gonna
not dead,
start.
by the way.
I know. God, it's just that Sylvanas. Before we get off the cinematic and talk about this, we can let's finish up the so yeah. So Sylvanas is there, whatever. And then the landmass is, of course, the new zone. The jailers sort of seems to be like pulling out of the nether or whatever they call the space between these worlds, which I guess leaves them open to like they can pull anything out of this nebulous like area between the zones, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
think it's literally called the in between.
cool. Yes, they can pull anything out of the in between. So yes, that's their the jailer ends up pulling a new landmass, which ends up being the new not really zone. I mean, it's just a subzone of the mall. Like the way they describe it, it's literally like the mall gains a new landmass that you can go to, right?
Yeah.
Versus like an entirely new zone. So, but yeah, the cinematic, as always, good. I mean, story maybe not, but the cinematic itself was exciting. Like everything, I was like super hyped watching it. So, um, but yeah, so that's sort of. I guess we can, if you want to move into like the raid discussion, because that's sort of where a lot of this ends up, right? Uh,
Yes.
in terms of the raids. They did give us a
So
couple of sorry.
the new raid, contrary to both of our expectations, I think, is in the
Yes.
mall.
Yeah, I think I said Maldraxxus, I
Yeah.
think. That's where I was headed. So
Yeah.
um
So straight to the mall. It is called the Sanctum of Domination. There are a few bosses in there that you're going to recognize. We've got Kel'Thuzad confirmed. Sylvanas also confirmed. I
as the
think
final boss.
Anam made the prediction that we would fight Kel'Thuzad.
I did say
Uh,
Kel'Thuzad is the final boss in the Maldraxxus instance, so I'm not 100% right, but I did
okay,
call
okay,
that we'd fight him again.
yeah.
So
Uh, and we're also going to fight the Terror Gru, which you have like a question like, who is this? This is the thing
yeah.
that kills you in Torghast when you die too many times. It's a big thing.
Oh,
That's
I
gonna be your
see.
raid boss.
I'm a Torghast pro, so I never die too much.
Yeah, I've had it happen once on like the first week.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's what that is. Okay.
Yes. And then
Cool.
the Eye of the Jailer, which they dropped some hints. If you think back to Legion, Odin in the Warrior campaign has no second eye, like missing an eye. Or I guess this is probably like showed up in Wrath as well. But Odin's missing an eye. They very
Oh.
heavily hinted that there was plot threads from there. We also know Helya's around, so the Eye of the Jailer,
Could be Odin's eye.
heavily implied.
Interesting. I did see that they were like something tying into Odin. I didn't realize he only had one eye. So
Yeah, Odin's got an eye patch.
hmm. He's like 37 feet tall though, so like it was tough
Yeah,
to look up
it's a
that
little
far.
hard to notice.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay.
Um, but yeah, we don't. I mean, we don't have a lot more information than that.
Other than the boss sword and the fact that Sylvanas is the final boss,
Yeah,
which means we kill her.
I mean, I
We
am
kill
not
we
convinced that
she
we're
dies.
actually going to kill Sylvanas.
She dies.
I, I, you know, I don't think it's
Do
actually.
not do not give me. So here's my point. If they do some level of redemption arc with Sylvanas, I am quitting. Okay, I say this. I'm not actually going to quit, but I'm gonna be very very upset. And I probably will pay less attention to the story than I do today, because it's you can't like she burned down Teldrassil. She shattered the Helm of Domination, unleashing the Scourge on all of Azeroth again, right? Like she literally has mind controlled Anduin and turned him into some like stealth assassin crazy kid, right? She had the jailer turn like Varian Rin's like sword into some Mornblade that's now like Frostmourne 2.0. Like oh
So if you
sh- sh-
if you look at, I've got on stream pulled up Odin Legion, you can see it's a little subtle. I had forgotten how subtle it was. But he does have an eye patch. You can see the blue glowy eye, and then the other eye is just like.
Interesting. But that has nothing to do with the fact that Sylvanas needs to die. Ellison. No, I mean like
I mean,
I would
I
imagine.
I think having her actually die is more satisfying, to be sure. I don't think they're gonna do it yet. I think it's gonna be something kind of like with Garrosh, where Garrosh got away and then instigated the next expansion and then bit the dirt as part of the leveling for that expansion.
I would hate that. To be fair, so and I think I'd hate it. I hated the way they did Garage like that because it relegated his death to like a minor footnote as you climbed the ladder to
I mean, it was
max
the
level.
culmination of end story, so I wouldn't call it a minor footnote, but at the same time, nobody did. And
Right, like
everybody finished leveling before they hit the grand.
well, exactly. Or like the second time through, like you never got that far. I mean, it's the similar issue I had where they made Blade Fist the first boss in the first raid, right? Like I think there are certain lore characters that deserve to go out in a certain way. And like while I'm super against Sylvanas and think she needs to be killed, not killing her here when she's the final boss of a tier means like no matter what they do with her is like of lesser importance, right? And they could pull the whole redemption thing, fine, it's whatever. They've done it with every other character. Like it's funny though, I've looked back and I'm pretty sure we have killed zero lore characters that have essentially had their story continued beyond Warcraft 3 lore, right? So like we killed Kel'Thuzad multiple times, but his lore was essentially done, right? And they resurrected him, after BC. We killed Arthas, right?
Right, but his
In
story was done.
Ravnica, right? And that finished up that line. Vaj we killed, or Vash we killed, right? In BC. So a lot of those like War 3 major lore characters
Which now
died,
those
died.
ones show up again in the Shadowlands because they are dead, and what is dead may never die.
I guess. But I'm just saying that like don't garage her and like relegate her death to like snuck away in the night, right? Like I
Yeah,
think
I think I think we're gonna see something like what they did with Ajara, where when you kill Ajara, you get a cinematic, and she gets yoinked by N'Zoth.
so dumb.
We're
I
gonna
can't.
see Sylvanas like get yoinked by the jailer. Here's here's what I expect to happen at the end of the Sylvanas encounter. Okay,
Okay.
so Sylvanas goes to 0 HP, and as part of that, now she is ready to try and use Anduin against the jailer. We get a cinematic. He tries to like betray the jailer, like she's been preparing to do,
Hmm.
and fails and gets yoinked by the jailer. That's that's my
And
prediction.
then do we never see her again?
Oh, I expect we'll see her in yes 9 point.
Hopefully dead.
Quite possibly.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean I could see that. I don't I would rather just kill her outright, but
Yeah. I mean, I I would be very surprised if we just kill her.
yeah.
It's gonna be, and I could see her like dying in that,
Yeah.
as because that's something they could do as well. Is this thing where Sylvanas, like we kill Sylvanas, and as part of that, you know, her little bit of weakening the jailer's control over Anduin goes away. So we're setting ourselves up for a more difficult later. Not because she was like secretly doing the right thing all along, but
Yeah.
because she had her own motivations and was also trying to screw over the jailer.
Right. Right.
Um, that's, I mean, I can see that happening.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see, but I don't know. Lore wise, just we need to get rid of her. I think it does though, with her being the final boss in 9-1. Essentially puts like almost the jailer or something like that as the final boss of 9-2, right? And then
I don't know. I think that really depends on what the cinematic is. Right.
well, they've already said that like the jailer will not be the final boss of the expansion. So
Oh,
they've
you're
come
right.
out
That means it
and
has to be
said
nine
that,
two,
and or we never fight him directly,
or we never fight.
right?
Yeah.
Which would be the other thing, but yeah, 9-2 seems
What if they pull a fast one on us? He's the penultimate boss, second to last boss in the last raid. Gotcha. No. Um,
I can't. I mean, that would actually be kind of. I'd be like, okay, fine, Blizzard, you
you
did it.
got me.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
He's not the last one. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go from here because I was like we said, like we weren't expecting to go right to the mall
Yeah.
patch, the first patch, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see where we go from here. I mean, there's still like a bunch of like Arthas is still out there, right? So like there's still that thread that is sort of lingering. Maybe he makes a comeback, but yeah, we'll see. What?
A secret boss.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. But yeah, I think that's the raid. Other than names of a couple things and that it's a 10 boss raid, they
Okay.
literally gave us
So before
zero.
we move on, I have one thing that I am super concerned about with this raid.
Okay,
Do you remember Jaina?
I do.
So Jaina was a ranged caster boss. It was an enormous pain in the ass to actually like position.
Oh yeah, she was.
Sylvanas, not a caster, thankfully, but ranged. And I am concerned we're gonna run into the same problem. Because
I
they
mean,
still haven't really solved them. They've papered over them with progressively larger quantities of paper mache.
yeah, yeah. I didn't even think about that. That'll be yeah. I wonder how that fight ends up going. If yeah, if she does sort of always want to attack it with a bow, right? Like, how do you move her? What is the movement of that one? Interesting. That's a good point.
the the worst thing they could possibly do is they're gonna take Jaina and Ajara, bind them. So you got all the movement problems of Jaina combined with having to use line of sight to
Oh
move
God, worst.
Sylvanas around like you did to deal with the Jar mechanics. And so the whole fight is going to be like wildly alternating between pissed off that you can't move the boss and pissed off that you're out of line of sight of literally
Yeah, no, please no more line of sight boss. If they put another line of sight boss, I might just go back DPS. I might just say F it, like I'll just AFK in a corner and like hit the boss. Like I don't ignore mechanics like the people in my raid do and go from there. So
Yep.
God, that
As
would
our
suck.
new raid leader likes to say, just go ook.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, so anything else on the raid? Cool. So the next PV, we'll stick to the PV theme. They did also sort of announce the new mega dungeon, which I don't, did they actually say the name of it? I don't
I don't think they
remember.
said the. If they did, it's like some nonsense name that's not going to mean
Yeah.
anything to you until you actually do the dungeon, and it's the name of the dungeon. It's
Right.
set in the broker city. Like the new zone we're getting is a broker city, or
Mhm.
area,
Yep.
and the dungeon is set in that city. Apparently, there's a heist that you deal with as part of the dungeon, but it is an eight
Yeah.
boss dungeon in the same vein as Mechagon.
Yep.
No word yet on how they're going to be splitting it for the future when they turn it into Mythic Plus. It will not be Mythic Plus on release again, like Mechagon.
Yep.
Um,
It is mythic only though.
yeah,
So it is considered a mythic dungeon, which means like weekly loot lockouts, things like that.
yeah.
So,
It also is going to have a hard mode, which
yep.
is cool. That was a lot of fun in Mechagon. That's like the highlight of patch 8.2 was Mechagon, like
Yeah,
the dungeon. The zone was actually like pretty cool, but honestly, the dungeon was easily the highlight of that
yeah.
patch. Um, so that's gonna be cool. Um, we don't have a lot more information on that, other than we do know there's gonna be like mounts and there. They previewed a lot of cosmetic stuff.
Yeah, they
Um,
also they did preview one of the bosses from this place,
oh yeah, the
which
Infinite
is
Pirate Dragon.
the infinite pirate dragon. So it's an infinite dragon with a pirate hat dressed up like a pirate. It's so freaking cool.
It's
Um
like it's one of those things that it looks dumb as fuck. Okay, let's be honest. It looks fucking dumb,
so good.
but I'll roll with it. It's funny. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
So and that's it's humorous and I'll take it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no,
I
yeah,
am
it's
interested though if
oh, sorry.
that means we're gonna get some more stuff about the Infinite Dragonflight that hasn't shown up since Warlords.
I, those are the time dudes, right?
Yeah. So
Maybe.
there were major players in Cataclysm,
Hmm.
then went away until Warlords, and then haven't been seen since.
Yeah, we might. I mean, that's actually a good point. We might see something on them. I mean, the better story for this guy is literally he just like got stuck here and became a pirate, like just like a dragon that was like I was like surfing the time waves and got ended up here, and I'm like stuck, so I'm gonna be a pirate.
You're
Like that would
literally
be the
just
better
describing
story.
you are describing a 90s sitcom.
100%. It's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but like it's a dragon that ends up. He's just
It's
like he
Bill and
like
Ted's
lands there. And he's like,
excellent
I'm a
adventure,
pirate.
except the dragon. Bill is a dragon.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, I hope it's more that is the lore versus like, well, I mean, that's me, but like, yeah, it would be interesting to see if we're hearing anything more about those guys. The brokers, though, in general, look pretty cool. Some of the models for that stuff looks interesting. Um, and for people who don't know who the brokers are, those are like the weird, like almost like they're almost like the old
They're the
what are
ethereals.
they? They're the ethereals, yeah. So yeah, so it'll be cool to see that zone. And yeah, like Mechagon was like Mechagon to this day is maybe not my favorite dungeon, but one of my favorite dungeons. In terms of just like something they dropped in the middle that we weren't expecting. So yeah, it was fun to do that, even to go through it like the first week or two, like over multiple like off nights, right, with
Yeah.
the same group. So yeah,
I
I'm
think
excited.
probably the thing that frustrated me most about like the base mythic on was the lockout.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I mean I bet you it's just because from a technical perspective they don't have the ability to do like weekly dungeon lockouts. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
maybe.
and I guess like the only place we really broke it is trying to do hard mode. Like we lost, and everybody went out. Like
Yeah.
it have hard mode. Anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh well.
but yeah,
Um just on this, well, I guess we'll get to it because there's some other things I wanted to bring up about this. But we'll talk through everything that's new and then get to the interview roundup stuff at the end.
yeah,
Um so yeah, so I think the next stuff we've sort of talked about this a little bit already. So there is a new subzone. It's Korthia,
yeah.
which is a new subzone in the mall. So it's not a new zone. You would still go to the mall and you will make your way to Korthia. Um, Essentially, the mall sort of changing. I guess is becoming less dangerous. So as our covenants sort of descend upon the mall, we
You
put you
don't
in
have
jailer
this on
mode.
here, but oh no, you do have this on here later on. But we're gonna be able to mount in the mall.
It's dumb. I don't want to talk about it. I
I
don't
mean,
want to convince.
they should have let it like put it in 9.0.5. Nobody's gonna be mad. Um,
I did all 8 layers of twisting corridors. I spent 2 weeks spending an hour a night in that place, Emerson. All right, and they're just gonna give it to people for
yeah,
showing up.
yep. I mean, I have 6 more layers to go. I could do it. Again, I'm not going to, but I could.
I I'm pissed. I'm gonna be that like boomer dude who's just like
Yeah, I'm
I
just
was a
I'm
kid.
thinking about my priorities right now, and if I'm gonna spend 8 hours in a row just like jamming WoW, I'm gonna go play classic and work on my druid instead of doing 8 layers of Torghast.
It was awful. But yeah, so you're right. They are going to let you mount in the mall. Just basically, I guess the idea is from a lore perspective, if you care about that type of stuff, your covenant is they're all covenants, not your covenant, but all 4 covenants descend into the mall and build a stronghold. And now you're more powerful and you have a better communication with the other worlds. So you can
Yeah,
mount now.
basically the Archon getting stabby um, instigates the rest of the Covenants to actually do something about it,
Yeah.
and so now do something about it means invade them all.
Exactly. But yeah, so it's a new subzone, new dailies, new. There's a new currency for Venari, which I think we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah,
So just this is sort of the new content area, new enemies, all that type of stuff. It's where you will continue your probably Covenant campaign, with things to do there. You mentioned like new mounts. I think there's a new hand mount which looks really
it's
cool.
literally just like a hand that walks around.
Like the old Adams
Yeah,
family hand, and you like sit on top of it up here, and it sort of like runs around.
yeah.
That looks. I mean, not seeing an anime, just seeing a picture of it looks super cool. So I'm kind of excited about that. But yeah, that's. I mean, ultimately, that's the extent of it, right? Like, it's just the new zone, the new story content. Um, the idea is that Blizzard stated there's no new system, so the idea here is that it's really just more dailies, right?
Yeah,
Like, if
which
we,
I will. This is going to be the first patch in 4 years didn't get a new system. I think the
yeah, I don't
last
think we
one that
mentioned
we
that
didn't
actually.
get
Yeah,
the new system was 8.1.
yeah, which is weird, but good, but good, but good. I guess. I
Very
mean,
good.
yeah.
Very good. I would say very good.
Yeah, so I mean, there's still a lot of tweaks to existing ones, but nothing brand new. So, but yeah, I mean, that's it really for I guess the new actual zone, right? There are going to be Torghast updates too, sort of coupled with this. So you'll see new powers. I think they're adding a wing or two, with the new tile set, and then a few new enemy types are coming in. But I mean, in general, it's the new subzone, the dailies that push there, and some like not retroactive, but changes to the way the base mall looks.
Yeah.
I'm assuming with now your covenants having more of a presence there.
There's
So,
also,
um,
as far as Torghast goes, they said that they are going to basically you're going to get part of the reward if you get partway through a Torghast run and then fail, or partway
yep,
through, which is good. Nothing was more frustrating than getting to the last boss, realizing you literally couldn't kill it with powers that you had, and wasting an hour of.
it was
So
rude.
they haven't given any details on what that looks like. It might not literally be 7/8 of it for getting that far, but you're gonna get something for getting partway through a floor, which is a lot closer. Like I played at length before about how roguelikes, like when you die, you're supposed to get something, right?
Yep.
And so we're finally actually gonna get something.
Yeah, yeah. That'll be an interesting change to Torghast. To give partial rewards will be nice for people who don't get easy anima powers to kick it off. Um, So yeah, so that's sort of on that one. A couple other quick hitters here, which not a ton was shown, but we are getting some Covenant cosmetic updates,
Yeah.
meaning we are getting Covenant specific mounts. So each Covenant will get their own new mount. The Venthyr one is a gargoyle. I'm actually kind of excited about that. The Night Fae one is a weird fox thing. It looks scary as hell. Like it came
it's
out of like
it's like the cloud serpent model with fur.
with fur, like no, it's
With
worse. They
fur
took the
in the
cloud
mane.
serpent model and textured a fox on top of it in the same geometries. So the fox looks like silly putty, which is like pulled like somebody put the fox in the old like medieval stretch machine. It was like, all right, bud, now you can fly, and you're like long and it's the. I saw it pop up and I had like immediate nightmares. I was like, this thing is the most
It's so
disturbing thing in the
bizarre.
world.
I love it. I love it. I'm very happy about that.
It's such a contrast because the face is so fox like and cute, and you're like, oh, this is like the fox mount that we have today, cute, cute, cute. and you're sort of like
And
going.
then
You're
you look
like,
at the rest of it, and it keeps
it keeps going.
going and going and going.
Like, what the f is like what? So yeah, that's super disturbing. But we're getting those. And then we're also getting covenant specific armor that is not armor type specific. So
Right.
it's like the heritage armor or something like that, where it's just a transmoggable set.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, they previewed all of the armor on human males, even though some of it is very clearly not designed for human males. If you look at the Night Fae one, which like Night Fae gets 4 colors, one for each season. It looks I don't I honestly have no idea how it looks because they previewed it on again a human male and like it's got like midriff showing very clearly designed for not the human male model. Like the only
so
way it
good.
probably could have been more awkward is if they showed it on like a male panda or a male Tauren or
So
actually
good.
female Tauren might have been more awkward, but you know.
That's awesome.
um
I didn't actually notice that, but that's pretty funny.
it was like I was looking at that and going, why don't you show it on like instead of showing us the same human male with every one of these tints, why don't you do like, okay, here's your human male because I have it,
Yeah.
and you know here's a night owl female. Here's I don't know an orc. Maybe you throw in something really bizarre like a troll. Maybe maybe you like yeah I don't know.
Something other than the same model over and over again. So
Or you like when the Venthyr one comes out, maybe you show it as on the blood elf in addition to the human, because
right.
yeah, I don't know. It's just that's always really annoyed me, and it really annoyed me here because some of it was like honestly really not good on human male. Like I feel bad for people that play human male, but at the same time I don't because they have a bunch of if you're human male, you're playing a paladin or a warrior, and you have lots of good armor.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll be good. You'll be good. Um, but yeah, so this is the at least the updates there. They also so they didn't mention this in the actual presentation, but they are continuing the Covenant campaign with 40 additional renown levels.
Mm-hmm.
Is a fuck ton of renown levels. Like,
Yes.
and I'm wondering, it's funny, I saw a couple tweets about this and some people getting mildly upset, right? That the fact that like I'm gonna be grinding renown for the entire expansion. And I guess I immediately was like, yeah, that sucks. And when then I thought about it and I was like, renown isn't you don't really grind renown. Like
Yeah.
renown is like a like story progress checklist, right? Like,
Yeah.
did you do the story this week? Yes or no? And it's just in the UI, you gain a level that like
Yeah.
I
I
did
don't
level
mind
up
it
from
at all.
40.
Like
Yeah.
I am You know, the best part is if you fall behind on renown, it's so easy to get. You literally just play the like if you have to like not do your renown levels for a week, like you can go and rate for the week and just get your renown levels from last week. Like
Yeah.
it's this is
It's
this is infinitely better than the AP system. Like not even in the same universe. Um and my biggest problem with the renown system we have right now is that every couple of weeks the soul collect souls quest just like gets longer for no like we're up to
I did
20
notice
souls
that.
now. It takes 4 times as long as it did the first time.
Yeah, I
And
noticed
I mean
that
I
too.
can't wait for us to be doing this in patch 9.3. It's gonna be like we're gonna go to the mall, we're gonna collect 122 souls. It's gonna be great.
Be there for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Ugh. Like you actually can't do it in like the week it needs it because your eye of the jailer just ends up being too high at a certain point where like every day you're maxing it out just by clicking souls. And like it's like got my 10 today, guess I can't come back for 24 hours. So yeah, I mean that quest is annoying, but
Oh,
oh sorry.
random tangent. I would love if the Eye of the Jailer, like it, either killing it on Mythic should just remove the Eye of the Jailer entirely from the
That'd be
mall,
cool.
or it should drop an item that you can get that while you're wearing it, you just progress on it. Because like they have the ring you can get off of I
Yep.
think Council. Um,
Isn't it all Denathrius? It's one of the yep. I thought
oh
it was all
maybe it's
Denathrius.
Denathrius. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Um,
But yeah.
and yeah, it is an FPS. You're right. And it reduces the rate at which you get Eye of the Jailer stuff. Like I think killing the Eye of the Jailer. Obviously, there's no more Eye of the Jailer. You should just be immune.
Yeah. It would be cool if they did the classic approach where if someone on your server killed the mythic version of Eye of the
Ooh,
Jailer, it turned it off. But it wasn't like across the region. So it was like you'd have to wait till
oh,
like the
that's
best
cool.
progressed guild on your server. Then you tie in like classic and it'd be so
Oh, that
cool.
would
And
be really cool.
people would hate that. People would honestly freak the fuck out. Like on the
Uh,
forums.
I mean, the Eye of the Jailer, like on my server, the Eye of the Jailer would basically be off. Well, are you saying it was just like kind of like Sunwell style turn off entirely, or are you talking more like Anixia's head kind of thing?
No, like Sunwell turn off or like AQ gates opening
Yeah.
type of
Okay.
like
Yeah.
server specific thing has to happen for it
That would be
to
cool.
occur. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It'd be a neat little flavor thing, but
that would actually be really cool. I would like that because then like basically 2 weeks into Mythic, a month into the patch, basically, the Eye of the Jailer would just be forever
yeah, which would be awesome.
servers.
It'd be cool. So, but yeah, yeah, there's not too many other Covenant updates, right? Other than that, the story continues, right, and some of the armor and mounts.
Just mention it sounds like we're getting basically Legion invasions, but with Covenants
Yeah,
as
in the
part of
mall itself,
the Maw stuff. Yeah,
not too much.
I guess except this time it's going to be the Covenants invading the Maw and we're helping them instead of the other way around. But
Right, right, yeah. Which is weird, but yeah, they'll be there. And then they did talk a little bit about season 2 rewards. So like PvP, KSM are just recolors of season 1, which
a little
I don't know.
disappointing.
Yeah, like really just like it's funny. So this is sort of the final big thing before I think the next section we wanted to talk about was just like everything that came out of interviews, right? So it wasn't a part of
Right.
the major, which we talked a little bit about some of that stuff. But if you look back what we've talked about right now, it's been the raid, the new Mechagon, or sorry, the new broker dungeon, a new subzone, and some like potentially cosmetic and like iterative updates to other major systems. To me, that's not a lot,
Yeah.
right? Like there's the bare minimum of what I would consider a point one or point two release, right? Which is a new raid tier, right? Like, but there's really not much beyond that in terms of like other content, which to
So
me is disappointing. Like it's disappointing.
I so we're getting a raid, getting basically a mini raid. The dungeon's got 8 balls,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and honestly, we're getting that, and we're getting a new zone. And
Subzone.
my understanding of it is going to be basic.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
Like if you, the maw is actually like basically 2 zones like jammed together. So
That's true.
I'm expecting it to be basically a full zone. Probably not as big as like Argus was, but Argus was huge.
Yeah, that place
Um,
is massive. Yeah.
but yeah, like this is I think a good amount of content if you compare it to like 8.1, uh, where we literally just got BOD and more campaign. There wasn't even a new like
That's fair. That's
like
fair.
that's one of the weaker patches in the history of the game. Although I guess we did get the mini raid like partway through that patch, so it wasn't all bad. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think this is a good amount of content because like, and we're getting the new story stuff. And part of the reason I say I think it's a good amount of content is that I am fine if the main game, like the retail game, has like doesn't have an overwhelming amount of content, so I can go and play other things. And if that means I go and play Burning Crusade, if that means I go and play Burning Crusade, that's fine. That means if I go and play like Total Warhammer 3 is coming out, I think this year. Uh, if I want to go and play that, I'll have time. I can go and do other things. Just play.
This is I don't know what we're gonna do with you. Playing other
Maybe
games.
you're the one that needs a new
True.
co-host.
That's true. No, I mean, I to when you phrase it like that, I guess it makes sense. I just it seemed like maybe from a like an overall content perspective, probably enough. It's just the detail. I guess the details were
I
light,
think the
right?
detail is certainly lacking.
Yeah,
They did say PTR for 9.1 will come out as soon as 9.05 lands, which
right. So we're close.
is going to be in
Right.
like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So
Yeah.
we are going to know a lot more pretty soon.
Yeah.
Uh, no more scrounging for podcast topics.
Exactly. Exactly. I have a ton of stuff to talk about then. So yes, I mean, I guess you're right. Disappointing was probably the wrong word to use there. It was probably more like just light on details. So
I think the thing that disappointed me most out of all of this is hearing that we would not be getting tier sets
yeah.
next
So I mean,
year.
I think yeah, if you want to, I guess we can jump to like they did a bunch of interviews, right?
Yeah,
Post a lot of these announcements. So there's a bunch of I guess topics. Yeah, we can start with tier sets as one of them, right? So no tier sets,
yeah,
at least in 9.1, right?
yeah. And this is my interpretation
Mm-hmm.
is they said we were going to be getting them in a later patch. I don't think they literally said 9.1, but everybody was clearly thinking 9.1.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that we're not getting them now, along with some of the stuff that Ian hinted about later that we're going to talk.
Mm-hmm.
I am no longer expecting to get tier sets this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the uh the comment in one of the interviews, and I thought I had it up here. I do. So yeah, the comment it's probably been asked by multiple outlets, but Wowhead, at least I have the Wowhead interviewed up here, right? Basically it was answered by Jeremy Fiesel in this one. And he essentially says like it's a concept that they think is really cool. So describing it as a concept here, it's definitely not 9.1, right? But 9.2, you're right, is probably uh somewhat of a stretch, right? And then they answer the question not with like, hey, this is what we're thinking, or like, hey, this is something we're trying to fit in. They answer it in basically essentially saying like, oh, but you can transmog all your Sanctum of Dominion gear to match your legendaries, and you'll have a legendary looking set, which is like a
No,
fucking cop out. Like
no. Yeah, it's
it's a not it's a non-answer. It's like we think the concept of tier sets, which we originally created 15 years ago, is cool, and you can transmog your gear to look like your legendaries. Did we throw you off the scent that we have fucking no idea how we're doing this, and if we are at all? Like this is like this sort of answer. Oh my god, this is like the epitome of why like I hate answers to this. Is like if you are thinking about doing it in a current like a future patch, literally say that. Like say we are thinking about implementing tier sets. It is on our plate to designing it in the game. We don't know if it will be in the game in 9.2. We know it's not in 9.1, potentially 9.2. We will let you know more as we get closer to that patch, right? But this is like a like the concept of tier sets is cool, dudes. You can translate yourself to look like legendaries. That answer the question?
mhm.
Like I don't know. Sorry, I maybe I'm off on a tangent of like reading too
No,
much into it,
you're
but it's like,
spot on.
but it's just like just answer like, and then like they end it with like not for 9.1, but potentially for future patches. Like the middle part about telling me I can transmog my gear to look the same because you're doing some art shit has no bearing on like people don't want tier sets because they looked the same.
Yeah, we
They want
already
tier
have.
sets because of the
Okay, so
powers.
there's two different audiences, right? There's the audience that doesn't care about the mechanics of tier sets and wants them because they want class specific sets. They want class sets. That's what they want. And then there's the
Okay,
people like us that want the actual like mechanically speaking tier sets.
right.
And that's what I want. And um jumping around a little bit, uh Ian talked about the fact that they are going to have a new reward system for raids. We don't
Yeah.
have basically any details yet. But what he said has me a little bit concerned after living through BFA. Um, so what he said, Anam's got the quote in here. We do have some exciting plans in the works to also give a special exciting reward to raiders who are going into the Sanctum of Domination, which is the new uh, and maybe even being able to tinker with some of the very power of domination itself that lies within as they get unique armor pieces and more. We'll have a lot more to say about that system as the PTR goes up, but for Raiders, we hear you. We understand that at times it has felt like you've been overshadowed by dungeon runners. So, first off, I am getting major corruption vibes from this one.
Yeah,
If we
yeah,
get corruption again, I'm quitting.
yeah,
I'm done.
yeah. I mean, yeah, like that's it's funny. Like I read that and I didn't actually get the vibes until like so I put the quote in. To be fair, I just like quickly skimmed it. But as you read it, as soon as you were like be able to tinker with the very powerful
Uh
or the
huh.
very power of dominion domination itself, I'm like, fuck, that's just corrupt. That's just corruption. You're
So,
right. Like that's
and I could see this going a lot better than that because it could basically be tier sets, but you get to pick the piece they go on. So if you get a good job, then you put your tier piece basically in that. Like if that's what it is, like great, let's go. I'm all for it. Um, but that doesn't seem what it he to be what he is describing. So I guess we'll know a lot more in 3 weeks. And until then, I'm gonna be a little bit nervous that we're getting Corruption 2.0.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah, and yeah. I don't have anything else other than like that. Just is not.
I read that and I went, oh no, we're not getting tier
It
sets because they got distracted. They went ooh shiny and built
brought
a
back
system.
brought back corruption. Only it's corruption, but you you don't. There's no bad parts about it. You just get so much power on your armor. It's like you can't become you become encumbered, right?
Yeah, and
Because
then
you
like
put too
the
much
unique armor pieces makes me think of Azerite. So like I don't know, honestly, just BFA poisoned the well for them doing any kind of like offbeat power progression system. Like just give me a fucking tier set.
Yeah,
That's all.
I agree. I
Just give me a
agree.
tier set. That's all I want you to do. Don't give me a legendary. Don't give me an artifact. Don't give me Azerite. Don't give me corruption. Don't give me any of that shit. Give me a raid boss that has on its loot table a token that I can go to a vendor and get a tier piece. That's it.
And I want to be forced to equip either 2 or 4 of them. I want to be forced to do that. Hell, I want to be forced to either equip 3 or 5 of them, like the old view or the what was it, 2 and 5 with the old system, right? Like I want to
Like,
collect every piece I can. Let's go to 8-piece tier sets, and you only get a power at 4 and 8, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
yeah. And like,
So
maybe we'll hit the PTR and I will be open to more things that don't involve lots of grinding outside. Like if we get there and it's like you have to spend anima on unlocking your grade pieces, then I mean, no. But
done.
if it's the same kind of thing where you get a if you basically if it's anything where you get a drop from a boss that is literally on its loot table, there's a lot of flexibility there. But basically, I want tier sets. Give me tier sets.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm on board with those needing to come back because to old Jeremy Fiesel's, old what's his Twitter name's like Muffins. He's the seer guy. He seems like a really great guy, but like tier sets are still a concept you really enjoy and we think it's super cool. Like then why did you remove it? Like come
Yeah.
on, guys,
Uh, or
don't.
talking about bad times in tier sets. So in Legion, we obviously had the 2+4 stuff. Or if you go all the way back to the Burning Crusade, you can do 4+4 with the BT set and the
Yeah,
Sunball
yeah.
set.
I
Hina in
don't.
chat is like 4+4, and that can stay in the Burning Crusade.
No way, man. That was fun. You could actually go all the way back. I mean, to be fair, you could do somewhat like that with AQ40 sets. We need the point 0.5 tier there. If you wanted to get crazy. Although I think that was less of a thing. Um yeah. But yeah. No, I mean the combining would be fun. But yeah, in any event, tier sets sounds like, yeah, to your point, that like Fiesel's comment plus, old Ions or Ian's, Mr. Hazakosis is seems like they are a not a 9 dot release type thing. Maybe they'll surprise us, but yeah. I guess a couple other things that came out of some of these interviews outside of this. So Stygia as a currency, just some quick ones, right? Stygia as a currency is only going to be for season one. So I think I mentioned this a little bit, like with the whole mall updates and things like that. There will be a new set of rewards you can earn and buy, but it'll be with a new currency. So spend your Stygia because it's only season one stuff. They already
Yep.
changed sockets that only work on season one gear. So there's no point in holding on to sockets beyond this first patch. So yeah, um do that,
Do
spend
that.
your Stygia. Flying is being enabled. I put this twice, but so flying is enabled or is going to be enabled essentially through completing your covenant campaign. So they at least initially just said, "Hey, you can fly," and that was the basis of it. But they released a couple more details in one of the interviews, and essentially said, like, "Look, there's no rep grind to do. There's no sort of traditional
Yeah.
Pathfinder. It's just do your covenant campaign." I think it's either max it out or get to some point of the story, and then you unlock flying, and it's account wide. And flying starts at level 50. So as soon as you enter, uh, what are we in Shadow? As soon as you enter the Shadowlands, your alts and stuff like that can fly. The only thing that's restricted is flying in the mall. You cannot fly in the mall. You can mount now because they give everybody everything for free and don't reward people who literally ground out 16 or 8 hours of their life in Torghast
I mean,
twisted corridors.
maybe if you do layers 16 of the twisting corridors, you get a
No,
flying mount.
nope. I will actually still do that, but that's fucking terrible. Um,
Um, but yeah, I mean, we have some other stuff that's coming as well. Like they mentioned empowered conduits, which
I think we
is
should.
I'm having a hard time imagining a more boring sequence of words. Um, but I'm on the record as really not liking the conduit system. And I think some of that is coming from the background of tanking, where most tank conduits are really bad. Um,
Well, I think Emerson, you have to think about it, right? Like if you can double the power of a conduit that has like let's say like a 0.2% increase in like your damage, and you double that, that's
0.4, great.
I mean it's doubled. That's what doubling does. If,
I
if
mean,
I'm not hugely great at math, but like
pretty sure that checks out. Um,
no,
I
it
like
sounds super
Brewmaster actually
uninspiring.
has a good conduit, like one singular good conduit. So, um, maybe, but they don't have any examples of it at this time. Much like the raid reward stuff, so we're gonna have to see what comes out when the PR lands for patch 9.1.
Yep. Yeah. Um Yeah, and then there's a couple other interesting things. There's no more customizations coming in the next patch, which is, I mean, traditionally, not traditionally, but they had been releasing like heritage armors and things like that,
I
and some of
think
these
like
like,
Covenant armor is a big lot.
yeah, yeah. And then what else? Just quick here. They're not making any changes to covenant swapping restrictions, so those are staying the same, which I think was interesting. I think that's it in terms of like wrap up stuff.
So I don't know if we read the same interview.
Yeah.
So what they said for Covenant swapping.
Oh yeah.
So they're going to be buffing covenants for classes that don't see a lot of use. So like
Mhm.
I don't know. Like we've already seen in 9.8, 9.0.5 Necrolord Warriors getting big buffs. Um, I would expect to see more big buffs like that to things like Tier Monk that literally nobody plays.
Yep.
Um, but they also, Jeremy Fiesel said in Wowhead interview, so I think that in both of these content updates, we are going to be seeing more frequent covenant swapping, something that we need to be sensitive to. We need to be listening to player feedback about how it feels to try us. Some of these new things, now that we're increasing their power levels, and make that not feel bad. So we're going to look at what it feels like to transfer a max renown character through a couple different covenants to try a couple different things. So it is something that they are going to look at. they don't have any concrete plans to reduce the like covenant swap restriction. But I would not be surprised if we get like at the very least like a reset on covenant swap downs and like a covenant swapped
May I,
if in response. Like
yeah,
I
I
I
think so.
I
Okay, okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were gonna be like, oh, they're gonna add this new way to do
no
it, like just in the
no
course of the normal game. But okay, in response, like if they make substantial changes to a covenant, do they let you switch to that covenant more easily, or just switch covenants in general more easily?
yeah.
And yeah, I'd agree to that.
I mean,
Yeah,
it was a little bit telling that like in my guild chat when the announcement was happening that like the covenants are coming together, like half the guild was like, no more swapping restrictions, and then got immediately deflated when they realized that's not what it meant.
let's yep, exactly. So, yeah, yeah, that's funny. So yeah, so I think, and the other, I guess the only other thing we haven't really talked about was like I know we talked a little bit last week, but the Valor Point system. Um, and I think they said that the achievements for that are account wide. So like getting KSM on, I don't know if it was in the Wowhead article or Wowhead interview or one of the other ones, but getting KSM on one character should essentially be an account wide achievement that applies to all of your alts too.
So no, I had an interview. Fiesel said he's not sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I picked that up from somewhere. It might have been like,
I know there was
uh,
a question about it in the Q&A.
mhm.
I don't remember what the answer was, but it came up in a couple places. It's a very common question. Like, I think you know, another question that's in the Q and A is whether we're gonna get 226 gear with valid hands. Right now, the answer is you'll know, but they are listening to player feedback.
Yeah, okay.
So, um, I would, yeah, I don't know. They need to, they can make it not literally conquest. Like conquest, you get the best gear in the game by doing people, right? And your conquest points, you buy the pieces. They can make valor points the same and give you the best gear in the game from doing the highest keys. And
Yep.
that's fine. That's totally fine. That works. Let's go. Um, they could also make it more convenient. Like if you have multiple characters, like your Keystone Master achievement counts for all your characters. And that would be nice for people like me that want to play multiple tanks, or just multiple characters in general. I would make gearing up alts a lot easier. And if that's the way that they make Valor points better, I'm going to be disappointed, but it won't feel as bad as just Valor points being worse.
Yeah. Yeah. True. True. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We'll see how the system plays out. I'm not dialed in. Like I'm not a huge fan of it right now, but we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. So, um, the there was one other thing I wanted to. Oh, okay. So there was two, I guess, two other topics. I put one of them in the notes, but there was one I wanted to talk about just before that. Was they did you get a couple of questions on the faction imbalance, right?
Yes.
Which is something we touched on, right? I think it might have been last week, right? Where they closed the Horde Hall of Fame, which is basically the first 100 guilds within Reset, right? So the first essentially
Yeah.
100 guilds to kill Sire Denathrius go in the Hall of Fame, and you get like a title for your guild, right? And it's faction based. So the first 100 Horde guilds that do it, first 100 Alliance guilds that do it, each get the title. When the Horde hit their 100th guild, Alliance had 12 or something, or 10
Yeah.
guilds that had killed Denathrius. So like the imbalance is massive at the high end. Excuse me. And there was a couple of questions, and I guess I mean Blizzard's going to know this better than everybody else, right? The imbalance at any sort of competitive mythic level, like Mythic Plus level, or any sort of competitive level in WoW, whether that's rating, Mythic Plus, or PvP, you are ultimately going to be Horde, right?
Yeah.
Um, because that's where the population is. It's not that
Yeah.
Horde is somewhat intrinsically
Which
better, like the racials are better and things
Ian
like that.
acknowledged that in the Q&A, which I was happy to see because I mean, he basically said it's a social problem and we need a social solution. I don't necessarily agree with that latter part, but it is a social problem. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so he also would not deny, like the interviewer asked,
Excited.
is making PvE content like doable with both Horde and Alliance players. Is that off the? Can we assume that that's off the table? And Ian was like, no, that's not off the table.
No. Which is a very different sort of tone that than they've taken in the past with
Right.
this. I feel like I think previously they've essentially like not answered the question or really just sort of talked around it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe if they have, they've always gone back to like Warcraft is about the
Yeah.
conflict between Horde and Alliance, right? Is sort of their
And
answer.
I so I think it is. I think in BFA especially, they were hoping that the Hall of Fame system would boost raid participation on the Alliance. What ended up happening is that the Alliance Hall of Fame is basically a joke. Like
Yeah,
there are the guilds at the top of it that are very good guilds that you know would also be in the Horde Hall of Fame because that's how good they are. Um, but there's 45 guilds in the Alliance Hall of Fame right now. I just pulled it up. There's 45. It's not even half full. There's
I mean,
actually a reasonable chance that my guild either maybe not. I'm hopeful that my team on the weekend team will be able to get it. I don't think we're gonna quite scrape in there like to get our virtual Alliance Hall of Fame, but I'm pretty sure that it's possible. The midweek team in our guild just started Denathrius last week, and it's entirely possible that they actually kill Denathrius before the Alliance Hall of Fame closes, and that's not even
it's ridiculous.
yeah. So I yeah, I don't think it worked out because they tried to make this system where you know both factions get their own leaderboard and everybody's like, so that leaderboard's a joke.
Yeah. Versus like, yeah, I want to head over there and get on it. Yeah, I mean, and he also mentioned too the other things they've done in game, like giving bigger PvP rewards to the lesser populated faction, which essentially just meant that like Horde always had 10% and never higher, right? Or whatever
Yeah.
the percentage increase was. So yeah, I mean I agree it's definitely a social problem. He it's funnily enough, he actually addressed the reason it probably ended up happening was because of the fact that what was it? It was like the Kata era of Horde racials were just ridiculously overpowered. Like Orc was so good from like a stun resistance perspective, still is. And stuns were such a huge part of PvP in that area. And then from a PvE perspective, right, you had you know Blood Elves and their mana return was great from a healing perspective. The silence, the AoE silence was great. Um,
I mean, if we go all
and
the way back to the Burning Crusade, if you were playing a
yeah,
paladin, blood
love it.
again,
Yeah,
way better than Seal of Vengeance, and the berserking racial has been around ages, and that's one that is worse now than it was earlier on. Like it was stronger in the past.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I at least I agree with at least it's nice that they're addressing it, and I actually agree that I mean they never solve this, right? This becomes an in-game thing where like you have a mercenary like system that's analogous in PvE, right? Um, and I don't think that generally will hurt the game because like to be fair, like we have not had a like open conflict between the other faction in a very very long time, right?
What do you
Like
mean? We had BFA. It's right in the name.
it's just like yeah, like just like MOP was all about the factions hating each other. Like,
hmm
come on, like the idea like the last time I feel like we've actually ended up having something similar to that is like when you do world events where you put the factions racing each other and you put them in similar places. But today it doesn't matter because my server would just win and crush the four people who play Alliance, right? Like, and that's it is what it is. So like I think it's too far down the path of actually like building in something like
Yeah.
to shift people to
I mean,
factions.
there's things
But
they could do, like if they gave if they just said, if they came out tomorrow and said transfers to Alliance are free, like just guild transfers, character transfers, everything from Horde to Alliance totally free.
Mhm.
I don't know if that would fix things, but it would mean that, if someone wants to go and trial for an Alliance guild, they're not having to pay $30 to trial it, and then potentially have to pay $30 to come back.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
lower risk. So
Yeah.
I don't think that would fix it, because ultimately there just aren't that many Alliance guilds left.
Yeah.
But it would help.
Yeah. And to Ian's point, I think he did make the point that it's very much a high end like issue. Like
Yeah,
in terms of overall faction balance, the factions are much closer
yeah.
just in terms of players playing each. But
I
when
mean,
you do anything competitive, it's really your horde or you're in one of the four guilds that still rate alliance for some dumb reason. So
yeah. I
um
mean, and it is also, it varies a
actually
lot from server to server, because, like you mentioned, your server is very, very Horde dominated. The server that I was on at the beginning of Legion was very Alliance dominated, and it's
mhm.
like, so it's a problem at the server level, and a problem at like the high end rating level, and the
Yep.
problem almost or else.
Yeah, exactly. So
But
it's
yeah,
a
I
tough
am
one.
all for, let us just play both. Like, let me make a Draenei Shaman and come and raid with my Horde. Like, let me do it. I don't care.
Gross. I'd be gnome. I'd just be a
You can
gnome
be
monk.
you can be a gnome shaman. I don't care. Break
I'd
the
be a gnome
rules.
monk. Come on, why are we picking shamans here?
I don't know.
This is peak of Serenity, Emerson.
I mean, okay, my
I
monk's a
now I
panda and
definitely
it's
need a
gonna
new
stay
co-host.
there.
Kidding.
But maybe I would switch it to an alliance panda.
Gross. Like honestly, it's fucking terrible. God, the worst race, man. And so then, so that's like they talked a little bit about faction imbalance stuff like that. The other final point is dreadlords are coming back. So I feel like I don't know if we touched on this when we talked lore or just in general, but I think it was probably you because honestly, wait, oh yeah, because we talked about what would be interesting to see certain bosses or certain people to come back, and I mentioned the demons, right? I mentioned like Mal'Ganis or like someone like that, right?
Yeah, we were talking about possibly having another dreadlord boss.
Exactly, yeah. And now they basically all but confirmed that like the dreadlords we are going to see dreadlords at least in patch 9.1. Whether we actively engage them or not, they're just going to be around. Which brings up a lot of interesting lore points that I read through because I am now the lore connoisseur, if you will. I that rhymed inappropriately because I didn't. That was not my plan there. Um, but there's a podcast interview on the Starting Zone, which is a WoW podcast, and they sort of talk to again Mr. Fiesel and old some other dude Frank. He has a very long last name. I'm not gonna mispronounce it. I believe it's Polish. And they sort of talk a little bit about dreadlords and their influence, right, and where we may see them. And it's interesting that some of the influences are going to be there from the dreadlords, sort of back from even Sargeras's time, and some of like the whispers you hear and things like that. So the whispers that like Sargeras heard about a certain like sort of plane and people and things like that. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see dreadlords come back, and that sort of burning legion stuff. So we
Yeah,
will. I mean, we were somehow, I always say which it's never just me, but we were somehow right in terms of saying, like, hey, maybe we get a Dreadlord like that. Because you asked the question, right? You were like, what happens if a Dreadlord dies in the Twisting Nether or like a
I
druid
think
dies in
you
the
asked
Twisting
that
Nether?
question,
Okay, okay.
and yeah, what happens? We don't know.
Well, apparently
Um,
they come to the Shadowlands because everything does.
um, okay. Let's have one more hot take before we close out the show. Okay,
Okay.
we're gonna see the dreadlord. It's gonna be the like plot twist in this story, patch 9.1, in the broker zone. We're gonna run up at the tail end of it. We're gonna run up against the dreadlord. We're gonna run into the dreadlords, and that's gonna set the stage for patch 9.2, where we're gonna see a lot more heavy involvement. getting a Dreadlord boss. I don't think we're getting a Dreadlord boss in 9.
Okay, so you think 9.2 Dreadlord boss? Okay, okay,
I'm
interesting.
calling that now. I've made like multiple predictions. We're gonna have to do a recap episode and see
Yeah,
how
we
my
will.
predictions did.
I'll have to literally rewatch this and be like, all right, this is what Emerson said. This was that. I mean, I would. I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna go there with you. I definitely think we see a Dreadlord boss in 9.2. I don't know if we. I'm actually gonna probably say that we don't actually end up seeing their influence until the raid.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so I'm gonna push it back a little bit in the story. Oh my God, no, that's what Sylvanas is doing. So didn't Sylvanas and the
She had a
Dreadlords hate each
Dreadlord.
other?
Yeah.
I thought that she had beef with the Dreadlords, and what is she literally just getting close to the jailer because she knows the jailer's working with the Dreadlords, and she's actively gonna be like, just like stab. I think you're so right. She stabs the jailer, but then she's actually doing it so she can go after the Dreadlords, and then we're like coming in like, go Sylvanas, save everything. Fuck, I hate her. I think I just woke up my wife. God damn it.
So Verimothras, if you remember the Wrathgate, Verimothras was the
Yes.
Dreadlord behind that,
Oh my
and
God.
so
Yes.
um, we killed Verimothras in Legion, but
Mhm.
is he actually dead? You know.
Oh my God. No. No. No.
That would actually make so much sense with
It would
Sylvanas. Is
actually.
if Verimothras shows up at the end of the next raid, like as part of the
Yeah.
Sylvanas encounter, that would be wild.
Yeah. I mean, with Blizzard's ability to not or inability to actually kill off major lore characters in the past couple years, like this makes sense. Well, potentially, yeah. It's a thread that would not seem too far out there in terms of like the lore, but God, dude, that would just be dumb, man. I
I
just
mean,
wanted to
did you?
die.
So I guess one more thing. Did you catch in the Q&A when they were talking about Juan Samdu? They talked about how they made him a much bigger character than they had originally planned after they saw the performance of the voice actor or heard the the voice actor's performance.
Yeah. I caught that. Yeah.
They also said that like the reason that Denathrius doesn't die at the end of Castle Nathria is because the person that was writing it was like, I think I think I want this character to come back later. No concrete plan for it right now, but they want to have that in their back pocket. And it's like, oh, so this is why characters stay dead.
Right, because they
Yeah.
literally can't write new characters, man.
I mean,
Like,
like Denathrius is a new character, but and Bonsomni is a new character, but at the same time, like they don't want to let go of the old characters ever.
but they don't like they're new characters, but like when Samdi lasted, I mean, he's back, right? But like
Yeah,
in essence, he was supposed to last expansion,
yeah.
right?
And
So like
Denathrius
they don't
is the same.
was yeah, so like they don't write like even like Zappy Boy, who
Yeah,
I don't remember his name, but like where's he at? Like where like
he's
you know
on
what I
the
mean? Like
War Council for the Horde.
oh, what fuck? Okay, so he's doing something with his life. Congratulations. I mean, like,
Yeah,
all I'm saying is like
yeah,
they don't write these like long-standing characters, and to your point, at the same time, they don't kill off long-standing characters.
yeah.
Like,
They
and
just
that's they
can't let go
need
of
to.
them.
Like 100%, if Anduin dies too, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah,
Even though I like the little dude, if he was like at the end of it, like somebody was like the Covenants were like, we can't let him live because he, you know, helped the jailer even though he's under
yeah.
control. Like, and they killed him, I'd be like, cool. Like let's kill some people, Blizzard. Like at this point, I
I'm
want them
gonna
to
send
just
that
kill
clip
off
to the
one
FBI.
I just wanted them to kill off one major character this expansion that has been around for longer than 5 minutes. All right. So like anybody new introduced at the start, any of the Covenant people die, don't care. But like they kill Sylvanas, awesome. They kill another like Tauren war chief leader, even better. Bane dies, I'm on it. Like let's just go through that fucking family, man. Just
Oh my
knock them
god.
out. Like I'm perfect. They actually, to be fair, that's the only horde people they've ever killed has been like the Tauren. They've got fucked every time.
Even
They killed.
Vol'jin's not dead. They're
Oh,
making
that's
Vol'jin a
true.
law.
Yeah. So, and then, sorry, I'm gonna get a little bit
Yeah.
of a tangent here, but yeah, no, I actually, you're right. Like this whole like maybe that's Sylvanas'
So
actual play,
from
Dreadlord.
chat, Jasher suggested, I bet Dreadlords are going to be the most powerful entities, and they are at full power in Shadowlands.
How aren't they demons? Like, didn't
No,
we?
I don't think they're demons. Like,
So they're not from like the twist. What's the demon
right.
place? Mardoon. What is that? The demon
Yeah,
homeworld or
I
the
think
yeah
there's like so like demon is like they've retconned this where like it used to be they were all the same like kind of thing, and that's
yeah
why they all have the same creature type. The only reason they still have that creature type in game now is for mechanical reasons, because the
uh-huh.
lore explanation now is that they're just like from all over the universe. Every different kind of demon, it's from a different planet basically. And so the Burning Legion is um a lot of different races from all across the universe that basically were conscripted by Sargeras.
Gotcha.
Dreadlords are separate, and that's my current understanding is that they are not like humans. And based on the stuff that we got at the beginning of Shadowlands, I kind of think they're not even from, you know, I don't know what universe. I think they're from the realm of. I think that's the implication, but I could be
Right.
wrong. They could actually
So
be just like contacted the realm of
you are
death.
actually you are actually I believe correct. So I'm quickly skimming the Wowpedia, number one source for WoW lore
Yeah,
out there, and apparently they are basically called the Nathrazim
yeah,
is the common term for a dreadlord, and yeah, to I think Hin is also saying like dreadlords are apparently integrated into the Burning Legion. They are not like the base race of the Burning Legion. They are different than like Kil'jaeden and Sargeras and those guys, right? Who are more like Eridar demon lords.
right.
I believe the Eridar are the ones that are tied to wherever we killed them. What's the name of that place in Legion?
Well, so Kil'jaeden is from Argus, right? That's the
Yeah,
Draenei
Argus. Yeah,
homeworld.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But Sargeras came there with the Burning Legion, right?
I get, dude. This is where I
Yeah,
don't.
I don't know. This is part where some of it got retconned, and I'm not entirely
Yeah,
sure what's new and what's old.
gotcha, gotcha.
Um, because like there's the BC lore, and then there's the Legion lore. Not the same.
Yeah. Oh, and Illidan destroyed Nezri. Apparently, according to BC lore, Illidan destroys the home of the Dreadlords. Nath Reza, which is where the Nath Razim are from, the Dreadlords. In any event, yeah, it sounds like Dreadlords are like considered separate. So maybe you're right. Maybe when they die, they actually end up in Shadowlands, which is why Sylvanas was trying to get back at,
Yeah, I don't know.
them.
We have thrown out a lot of crazy conspiracies today. We're gonna see some of them potentially come to fruition over the course of the next patch.
And Sylvanas
Um,
dies.
but like I
Spoiler.
said earlier, we're not gonna do a Q&A today. We are already running long. Um,
It's true. That's a big one.
so I think we're gonna wrap up the show there. There's a lot of news from this week, and yeah, a
It's a lot of game to play. A lot of.
lot
It's
of game
funny
to
that
play.
I'm more excited about the story now. Now that we sort of talked through that Dreadlord thing, and I actually
Yeah,
remembered something about like whatever whenever Sylvanas did it right. Like I'm excited. So yeah,
yeah,
we'll see. There's a ton of new stuff. I mean, and of course BC is coming back, so super excited there. But yeah,
yeah. Like I am now feeling very nostalgic. So when I leveled my druid back in BC, I leveled through um Hillsbrad and Interlands and what's Rothi
we're at the
and
Highlands. Highlands,
Arathi
yeah.
Highlands, yeah. And the hints, yeah, that like area, and now I'm like, double range those are.
Nice, nice.
Pretty
Very
sure the
cool. Very
hinterlands
cool.
are 5 or something. I think the other ones are. Yeah.
Nice.
Uh, I'm. Despite the fact that we didn't have huge earth-shattering announcements for modern WoW, I still think this was Blizzcon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the big ones where like I cared a little bit less, at least before this show, about the retail WoW stuff, and more. I
Yeah.
was more excited about like
I mean, I,
the other franchises and
I
like
think
the
the other
big details.
franchises got, if you count, especially if you count Classic WoW as like a separate franchise, which it kind of is,
Yeah,
but kind of isn't. Then yeah, I definitely think the other franchise largely got more,
yeah,
which is fine. We just had an
uh,
expansion release, so that's kind of to be expected.
Yeah, and real quick before we end the show, the one thing I forgot to talk about was all the updates they gave around Heroes of the Storm.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
do you have like a couple minutes to go through that?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Cool. So they said nothing.
Oh,
That was
what a
dead
bait.
game. Dead game.
Crap. People in my guild still play that.
So to be fair, like yeah, me and a bunch of my friends started playing it again like this like the last 2 weeks for whatever reason. But yeah, no updates. So dead game. Sorry.
What a bait. Okay. We're
That
gonna
was
wrap
so
up the
good.
show there. Thank you all for watching. And for listening. This has been episode 57 of the Peak of Serenity podcast. If you enjoyed this and you want to support it and all of the other work that we do at Peak of Serenity, you can do that over at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. You can also, if you would like to help out, come and hang out in Discord. We've got lounge channels to just chill in, and question and answer channels and discussion channels for each of the specs. And it's a good old time. Um, and we always appreciate it when people come and become a bigger part of the community. But again, thank you all for listening. See you next week.
Bye.